right, let's get this. Okay, yo, 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 what is up, everyone? This is sound design series tutorial part two, I guess. Today we are going to be covering how to use Operator on its own to get some really cool sounds. I'm not on its own, but no wraps, no resampling, just straight one operator patch in Ableton to get some really cool sound design in conjunction with a bunch of Ableton stock uh, plugins and stuff. So here we go. This way a little bit and move this guy over here. Kind of liked it over in this little section right here. So yeah, all right, cool. Let's do this. Not really sure exactly where to start here. If you watched the last video, went over a whole bunch of like basic sound design concepts. Um, Definitely watch that if you haven't yet. That's gonna really lay the groundwork for a lot of what I'm gonna be doing here. So starting off, and like I kind of mentioned in that video, but it definitely merits a mention here as well. This is gonna be mostly about bass design and synth design in general. In future videos, we'll cover, making like percussion out of synths, making kicks and snares and toms and all that kind of stuff, making hats and whatnot. But for the most part, we're gonna work on basses and synths. And we're definitely gonna start out making basses since I make bass music, and a lot of people who are gonna be watching these videos will probably be looking to make similar styles of music. So, but all this stuff is super helpful for making any kind of sounds. Like I said in the last video, and probably will continue to say in these videos, this is really just to give you a good foundation so that you know how to make whatever sounds you want. At the end of the day, if you understand how these tools work really well, then you can make whatever sound you can think of. It's just a matter of boiling down what that sound really is, like what envelopes are in that sound, and figuring out a way to get there with basic shapes. um, so yeah, without further ado, here, let me get this going to, my throat is kind of dry. Okay, so we have this operator patch here. Pretty simple, just a sine wave right now. Oh, let me go and actually put my preferences on. Oh, yeah, let me do this then. Let me see if that is check. Let's see. Yep, got signal there. All right, cool. Got that. So we got this basic sine wave. For me personally, when I'm going into design a bass patch, there's something I always start with, which is getting my sub the way I want it. So with this, if you watch the intro to operator video, you understand like what each of these 8 panels here do. So I'm not really going to cover that too much. But the first thing I'm going to do is change the voices to 1 to make it a mono synth. So we're not really going to be playing any chords with this. I'm going to put this pitch up to 12, even up to 24. Why not? Nah, I'll stick with an octave for now. That's to affect the pitch bend range. Let's see, anything else I have to do here? Put the glide on. I like having glide. You don't really need it. We'll get into different ways to kind of use that with on and off. Leave it at 50 milliseconds. That's fine. So let's see. We got a nice subby like E flat, D sharp note there. Cool. The first thing I'm going to do is go into my oscillator section, and I'm going to draw in a couple of harmonics, the second and the third and the fourth, so that I have something that kind of looks like this. I might even draw in like a fifth, Bring this up a little bit, maybe this up a little bit farther too. All right, cool. That looks good. You'll notice that this sine wave is not really like a perfect sine wave anymore. It's kind of like, it almost looks like a little bit, it's like a wider sine wave. If you did watch the last video where I get into like how saturators and distortion devices work, and you saw me kind of clip the top, this is starting to get into that kind of area where it almost looks like the top and bottom of this wave have like sort of a really gentle clip. In that video, I only showed like what a digital clip looks, which is just a hardline clip. Most saturators and different distortion units give you options to use like a gentler clip, which means that there's sort of a gradual slope before it actually cuts the top, so that you don't get like a really jagged hard line, which is going to open up all kinds of other harmonics. So this is just like what I would call a nice harmonically rich sub. And this is basically like the basis for most of my subs. I make different ratios with this. Sometimes the second harmonic is a little bigger. Usually this is a good, and these can all be a little bit smaller if you want to, but this is a good amount where basically on big systems, it's going to come through really nice. You have that low fundamental note, that real low subby note coming through at a good ratio to these, where it's going to come through really, really nice and thick on big systems. However, because you have all these harmonics going up to actually like about 200 hertz, a little over 200 hertz in this case, other speakers like iPhone speakers and laptop speakers, really like bad car systems, car speakers will also be able to reproduce that sound as well. It won't be like thick and it won't be the loudest thing in the mix. That's fine. You don't really necessarily want that. But it'll be there, and it'll be just audible enough that it'll still carry the bass line on systems that aren't really able to reproduce those really low notes like that 40 hertz wave down here. So if you watch that intro to operator video, then you know that each of these are their own oscillator, and this global tab here affects the routing of these. So a lot of times what I like to do here is with this subby note, I like to either put this in parallel or one of these guys or one of these, where basically in this case, in all three of those versions, here, here, and here, the A oscillator is acting independently of C, B, C, and D. So in this case, they're all acting independently. In this case, A and B are acting independently. C is kind of acting independently as well, but is then FM by D. And in this one, A is acting independently and B is acting independently, but is FM by C, which is also FM by D. So FM, again, frequency modulation. So in this case, we're just gonna, I guess, go with, let's go with this guy. So we get a little bit of FM possibilities here. So with this, I'm gonna start with a saw wave. I use a lot of saw waves in a lot of my music. Square waves work great too. And referencing the last video on the basic concepts, the main thing is here that we want a really full frequency spectrum in order to get a lot of cool sounds and have a lot of frequencies to play with and mold and shape and such. So let's bring this up a little bit. All right, now you'll notice that this, because a saw wave comes all the way down to the bottom, you don't really, you kind of miss out on that ratio that we kind of created here with just that subby sine wave. I have certain ways to sort of keep that ratio how it is. When we get into creating racks and things like that, I will actually, you know what, we can do this right here on the filter. Let's see, the filter, do I have a way to assign that to just that oscillator? I don't. So yeah, I usually use racks to do this, but it doesn't really matter. In this case, we just have like a nice subby saw wave here. Let's take this guy and pull this up a little bit to like the third harmonic. Bring this up and let's FM it a little bit. All right, cool. Got a nice little sound there. And we're just going to keep it pretty basic. So again, this D is FMing this this C oscillator, which is 2 octaves up from our fundamental note at the fourth harmonic there. So, and again, you know, just play around with this stuff a ton, experiment and get different tones. If you can get a tone that you really like out of this operator just on its own, then fantastic. You know, the rest will be a lot easier. So, but the main point of this video is not just on how to use operators, since we already had another video that covered that. The main point here is to show you a bunch of different post-processing for this. So off the bat, let's crank this saw wave up a little bit more here. I'm gonna dip this up and pull up the this top end just a little bit. Yeah, so okay, there we go. So this is something that I'm going to start out with just right off the bat, because I show everyone that takes a lesson with me this concept. In order to, if you don't want to run your sub on a separate channel, which a lot of the time I don't, I actually prefer it. I mean, I do occasionally. It really depends on the type of music that you're making, but for a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, there's no reason to. I like keeping it all in one sound. And again, that gets a little more complicated when we have like different racks and things like that that are sort of doing different things. But really, at the end of the day, you don't have to, and the reason why is because you can separate the bands and do all of your processing on the top band. Most of you who are watching this probably already know that you don't really want any stereo spread on your low end, like anything under like 100 hertz. That's for a variety of reasons, mostly just to prevent phasing from happening. When you get either additive or subtractive phasing, both can be equally as bad for different reasons. And so anytime you're splitting that signal, since subs are sort of a mono channel and the human ear doesn't really hear sub frequencies directionally the way that we do higher frequencies, you don't really need the stereo spread. It's not going to improve your music at all. Which is why, you know, when you go to a festival or a club, very often they have the tops up here, left and right, and then they have a stack of subs in the center, because it just kind of works to have the sub on a mono channel. So with that being said, we do want to add a lot of stereo width to the top end on this to get some really cool sounds, and I don't want that to affect the bottom end. In the same, by the same token, I don't want to overly saturate or distort my bottom end. If you watch that last video with the basic concepts, you at least have a super basic understanding of harmonics. All that you're doing when you distort and saturate things are adding harmonics anyway. So what we did essentially by creating this sine wave with these harmonics is just did that in a more controlled way anyway. So as we go and start to like really kind of mess with this top end here and push and pull different frequencies, distort it, saturate it, delay it a little bit, we're going to not want any of that stuff to really affect the bottom end for the most part. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab an EQ8. This can just go after this first one. Actually, you know what? This, I don't even really need to do that. So let's just use this one right here. All right, so we're gonna grab this. We're gonna take this one. We're gonna put a four 48. I'm trying to remember what this is. If it's a 4-pole slope, which would be a 24 decibel per octave slope. I think I remember reading that's actually a 448 decibel per octave slope. So we're gonna take this little high pass with the ×4, put that there. We're gonna group this. So even though we're going to get much farther into racks in actually the next video that we do, it's definitely worth mentioning, you know, here, just because we kind of need it for this device. So I'm going to hit Command G. You can also do that by hitting the top bar of any of these, right-clicking it, and hitting Group. So we group that. We're going to click on this little thing that pops open the chains here, and we're just going to create a new chain. We're going to grab another EQ8 from the top here, and I'm hitting just Command F on my keyboard and to open up the search bar and typing in EQ8. So I'm gonna throw this on the chain here, and on this high band, we're gonna do the same thing but as a low pass. If you click this top button here, it's gonna open up our macros. We're going to make sure that the 8 is selected. You'll see it's kind of highlighted yellow there. Grab this frequency, right click it, and click map to macro 1. Go back to this other chain here, make sure this 1 is highlighted yellow, and right click on frequency and map it to the same macro. Okay, we're gonna pull this down to, let's go with like probably like around like, you know, 100 hertz or so. And this is all to taste and all to you know, it definitely depends on what key your song is in, what notes your basses are hitting a lot of the time, and you can kind of figure that out as you go. So basically what this means is that wherever this knob is, it's going to control both of these, and that cutoff will remain the same. Now, some people do this with an EQ3, or I've even seen people do it with like multi-band compressors without actually using any compression, just to use that slope. Personally, I like doing it with, personally, I use FabFilter Pro Q. You can get a much steeper slope, and I feel like I have a little bit more control with being able to solo certain bands and hear really what's going on. But it works just fine with an EQ8. And the reason I like it with an EQ8 over an EQ3 is just because I can actually visually see the slope of the cutoff there. So I have a little bit more of an idea of where that is. So we're gonna keep this like 130 for right now. Anywhere between like 100 and 200, again, just depending on taste and depending on the sound, is gonna be like kind of the sweet spot. So I'm going to hit Command R. Again, you can always right click and hit rename, same thing. Command R and just call this my high band and this my low band. All right, great. So if you go ahead and make one of these, you can do the exact same thing with Pro Q if you have Pro Q. And I like the Pro Q, but again, it works with this. Once you have it made, just go ahead and click this, rename it to something like I call mine like a 2-band split or splitter or whatever. And once you have that, you can click on this little floppy disk drive right here and save that to your user preset. So in the future, you can always just search right in the bar up here for like your 2-band splitter, and it'll pop up there. So you can also make this a 3-band splitter. I have both saved, and it's kind of the same concept. You would just make an additional band and just assign one of those to this macro, and then assign your sort of higher crossover point to the second macro for your high and mid, and then your low and mid would be attached to the same macro here. So and we'll get into that in the racks too at some point if something necessitates it. This is a simpler version that I feel like is pretty good to start with. So on this high band, we got this going. First off, let's give it some, I guess in this video, honestly, I'm really just gonna be like messing around. There's a million different things you could do to this. Let's throw on an amp to bring out some of that top end and give a little bit of distortion to it. So this is an important thing to note as well. All the processing that you want to put on this has to go before this. Otherwise, if you put it after, it could add back in some of those lower frequencies that we don't really want added in. So with this, let's see. All right. That on dual. We don't have any, I mean, it's a mono sound right now, but it could be different in a little bit. So that's cool. Blues is also good. It's a lot crispier. And you just play with the dry wet. Something that is just a good thing to remember with a lot of these devices that I feel like a lot of people starting out in music production don't realize is that, a little goes a long way with a lot of these things. So you don't always need your dry wet at like 90 or 100%. That's fine if that's how you like it too. But I use a lot of different devices, and some of them will have like 3 or 4% dry wet. So let's pull on a chorus. This is the new Ableton 11 chorus. I think they still have the chorus classic in there too, but let's throw this in and see what this is doing so far. Let's bring that down a little bit. The amount down. All right, that's sounding good. And let's see. Let's bring in, this is something that I like to do a lot. Actually, let's start a little simpler. I talked a lot about movement, right? So what we're doing right now, this amp is going to bring out that top end a little bit, distort those upper frequencies since we're all on this high band here. This chorus is going to give a little bit of stereo spread. We have other ways that we could do some stereo spread as well. In fact, I'll show you one of them just really quick. This is the Haas effect delay that I mentioned in the last one. If you take a delay, just like a regular old delay, and let's turn off this chorus for a second here. And you put the dry wet at 100, pull the feedback all the way down to 0, turn sync off. You have to unlink these and turn sync off on both separately. Turn this down to 1 millisecond, and then turn this up to like anywhere really. Basically, as soon as it's not at 1 millisecond, you'll see there'll start to be some stereo spread. So if I start playing this, right now it's still mono sound. All right, now we get some nice stereo image. So that is the Haas effect in action, essentially. You can play with this however you want. You know, you get a little bit less noticeable effect here. You'll notice that depending on the sound and depending on the time difference, it might sound a little more shifted to the left or the right. Generally speaking, if you just want to create stereo width, you want it to be kind of like not sound like it's coming from the left or the right as much. So. All right, so that's sounding good right there. That is the Haas effect. I mentioned it in the other video, the last video about basic concepts. So I just wanted to go ahead and show that too. But for right now, let's leave that off. Let's turn this chorus on. Let's double click that and hide it in case we're going to pull it back on another time. Here is a cool way to just get some movement going. And I apologize, you know, off the bat for people who do have Ableton Suite. Some of these devices you're not going to have. I don't remember off the top of my head which ones they are. So if you don't have something, that's fine. Hopefully I'll show you enough of these devices and different ways to kind of mess with the sound that, you know, you'll have different options to play with. So let's just take another EQ. Let's pull this in here. Let's take this guy and throw this gain up. Pull this up here. Let's grab this guy here and throw this down, this band here. Let's take an LFO, and now this is something that's only going to be in standard because this is actually a max for live device. But I'll show you some other ways to get movement. Oh, wow, I did not mean to hit that mic. Okay, so if you map this LFO, let's grab this top band here, and again, you have to highlight that because these aren't actually linked to any one parameter. These buttons here control two parameters on an XY grid, the frequency and the gain. So if you're trying to map something or automate something, you can only do that to single parameters at a time. So you have to make sure and highlight it or just click it and then click on the actual frequency one. So we're going to click map, make sure this 2 is highlighted or whatever, you know, band you put up there. Click on frequency. All right, and now we get something like this. All right, that's not exactly what we want, so we're going to tweak this a little bit. Let's bring the rate down. Let's put the offset over toward that direction. Let's pull the depth down. All right, so that's kind of the range that we want. And now, for a more distinct sound, you can make that Q really narrow. For a more of a subtle sound, we can bring the gain of the Q down a little bit. All right, cool. We have a little bit of movement. You know, every time I play this, where it's just, we have stuff happening. The sound isn't static anymore. There's movement. It has a little bit more life to it. So let's bring in another LFO and do the same thing to this bottom band here. Map this. Let's highlight that first. Map to the frequency, and then we're gonna do the same thing. Let's bring the rate down. We don't want it at exactly the same because we don't want them to just constantly be like lining up with each other. Let's pull the offset and the depth down. Offset over there, depths over here. Let's pull the range maybe up a little more. I don't know, maybe like there. Okay, great. Let's put this chorus on the other side of these guys. Now, remember, signal flow is always going to be important in this stuff. The signal passes left to right through each of these devices. So, you know, you can always experiment by just moving stuff around and seeing how that signal changes depending on the order of these devices. So, turn this Haas effect back on, see what that does. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's put this utility. Actually, let's just over here. Bring the width down just a tiny little bit. All right, cool. What that is essentially doing, let's pull it up. So yeah, that's good. What the width here, bringing it down is going to do is it's just going to take a little bit of that signal and just mono it. So now essentially 21% of the signal is actually being summed together and played through both speakers identically. And the other 79% is just playing how it is right now, which as soon as you take this Haas effect into account, where the left channel is coming out at, you know, with a 1 millisecond delay, so barely noticeable, and then the right channel is playing with a 10.5 millisecond delay. Either one is barely noticeable on their own, but again, as I explained in the last video, our brains do sort of, they recognize it without recognizing why. So we recognize that they are not coming to our ears at the exact same time. Therefore, the sound is not directly in front of us. But we can't tell because it's the same volume. We can't tell if it's coming from the left or the right first. We just know that it's not from in front of us. So it creates this really cool, like, huge width. However, by definition, the entire signal, at least the entire top end of this signal, since again, we're only on the top band right now. So the top end of the signal is going to be 100% stereo. Sometimes we don't always want that. Sometimes you want a little bit of mono too, just to help with playability through smaller mono speakers like phones and JBL speakers and Bluetooth speakers and things like that. So all right, let's continue on making and something else you can do with this, by the way, is just turn this dry wet down a little bit. But in this case, I kind of like leaving that up and just turning down the width on the whole signal. All right, cool. So we got our movement. We got the top end is a little bit crispier. We got some stereo width now. Now it's really just up to you how you want to do this. And since I am just kind of messing around, I'm just going to keep throwing stuff on here and just shaping this signal and letting you guys kind of see what different things do what and what devices like I use a lot. Here's something I do a lot. It used to be in Ableton 10 and everything before. It used to be called frequency shifter. Now in 11, it's just called shifter. So I'm going to pull in one of these guys. And what is really cool about this thing, you put it on frequency, put the dry wet at like anywhere around 50. In fact, I'll just put it at 50. And you turn up the fine tuning just a tiny little bit. You're just detuning the signal on top of itself, which is going to create this really cool sort of phasing effect. And this is what it sounds like. Actually, you know what? Let's turn off this EQ for now. So that's not really having an effect. And we'll turn off the delay too, just for the time being. All right, so we have a more or less kind of static signal again, just so you can hear this better. We turn this up a little bit. And you'll see that the more detuned it is, the faster that sort of phasing effect happens. It's basically a combination of like additive and subtractive phasing happening in quick succession, because every so often, since half the signal now, 50% is detuned by 5.8 hertz in this case, 50% is just the original signal. So that 5 hertz difference on that tuning means that every so many wave cycles, the waves are going to line up right on top of each other, which is going to create additive phasing. And then every so many wave cycles, certain frequencies are just going to completely cancel out. However, because they're playing at different overall tunings, that's going to keep changing. As time goes on, it's going to keep moving around that frequency spectrum. So the closer detuned they are, like the less amount of detuning you have, the slower that's going to be. And in a future video, maybe I'll draw this out in case you guys are curious about the actual like visualizing that concept a little bit more. But for now, you just need to know that smaller detunings give you a little bit slower stuff. Faster gives you a little, more detuned gives you a little bit faster of that effect. I actually use this and I automate it a lot as well. It can be cool to kind of leave it really low like this. And then like when you do like a pitch bend, just like automate it up, make it really fast or something, and come back down. So I use that a lot in my music as well. So you'll probably hear plenty of that. All right, so let's leave that on. Let's bring back this Haas effect. Let's bring back this EQ. All right, I want to just beef up that top end a little bit more now. So let's pull in an OTT, the famed OTT that everyone in bass music is obsessed with. And with these, I rarely use them at 100%. You're more than welcome to if you want to. All right, cool. We're getting a pretty cool sound here. Now, something that should not be neglected is the fact that you can always go back when you have a lot of this processing and start tweaking this operator patch a little bit more. So let's say we want to change this saw wave to a square wave. All right, cool. Getting a little carried away there. Let's draw in some random harmonics here and see what that does. That's pretty cool. Let's go in here and turn this course up. All right, cool. Let's duplicate this and let's just like kind of keep this patch how it is and keep adding on to it, but have the ability to come back if we want to. So let's see here. Let's change this guy. Let's put this back to a saw wave. And let's put this one on a saw wave actually and see what happens there. Oh, we still got that one playing. That's why. And by the way, the fine tuning down here does exactly the same kind of effect as the fine tuning on the shifter, where it's basically just creating a little more movement because you're going to get some phasing action that sort of happens additively and subtractively at different times as the signal keeps playing. So let's put this. Let's adjust the phase on this guy down here. Let's bring this down. Put that fine back down. That's kind of a cool sound. All right, let's add some LFOs in here. So let's turn this guy on. We don't want it affecting our sub. In this case, I mean, maybe you do. I'm just showing you different things in different ways that I personally affect these sounds. So let's see. All right, cool. What else we got? Let's start pulling in like some filtering stuff. Let's do some wave shaping on this guy. Let's take a saturator. Let's pull saturator in here, and first I actually kind of, I want to saturate the whole signal a little bit. So I'm putting this before this 2-band split, which is all that other processing here, and I'm gonna just bump it up a little bit. Actually, I don't love this guy over here. All right. Cool. That sounds good. Let's go ahead and start wave shaping this top a little bit. Bring another saturator here. So the Ableton saturator is dope. It is definitely one of my favorite Ableton stock plugins. Definitely play around with all these different versions. Analog is going to be the gentlest saturation. Soft sine is going to be a little bit thicker, and so on and so forth. How this works here is the color is all of this stuff here. The DC is a direct current offset. Read into that if you're curious what that does. There's a little bit of info over here if you hover over it. But if you're not sure like what DC actually is, direct current actually is, just read into it a little bit. By turning on the color knob, you can choose with this here how much or how little the low end gets affected. Which, keep in mind, yes, we're on the high band, but this only gets high passed at the very end here. So all those low frequencies are technically still coming into this saturator and all of this stuff here. And if you don't want that, by the way, just grab another EQ8 and just pull it into the beginning, essentially, and just high pass it there. I'll see how that changes everything. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of times I don't want that. Sometimes I'm just going off of like this first oscillator, which doesn't have a lot of top end stuff, and I bring in those top end frequencies simply by just like distorting and saturating, you know, the shit out of the original waveform. In this case, we have like this saw wave here. We have two of these saw waves, so there's plenty of high end frequencies to work with if we do high pass it, but that's up to you. So let's put this back on and let's go to the wave shaping. Hit this little arrow here to bring this out. I don't need this DC current on. And with this, let's turn on the drive a little bit. All right, that's getting real crispy and nice. Cool. Let's bring this up a little more even. If we just destroy it if you want to. Let's actually come on here and just pull this guy down a little bit. All right, getting some real crazy sound. So again, this bass, what that's doing is really directing this saturation to those low end frequencies. So you're gonna get some crazy sound when you start just like tearing those apart. Now, at the end of the day, because you still have this low band here that is doing that right there. And actually, let's go ahead and let's put this LFO not on B either. So that those aren't really doing much, like moving around too much. So you still have this coming out. So at the very end of the day, let's pull out a spectrum so we can see what's happening here. You still have this nice subby tone kind of left alone. And actually, let's say we want to actually bring these down just a little bit. A lot of, you know, sound design in general is tweaking stuff as you go. I mean, it's music and it's experimentation. So a lot of this is just a taste. Again, my goal with these videos here are just to kind of show you how you can start getting some really cool sounds out of different stuff. So, all right, so let's take this. And let's, what are we gonna do here? Let's do this. Let me actually put this gain back up here. This here. All right, so let's go ahead and just like throw in a clip. I have this little beat that I made just to be able to, you know, kind of use these sounds a little bit. So again, I don't want to get too much into arrangement stuff here because I'm definitely going to have videos on that. I want this to be kind of easily digestible in chunks. I want you to be able to watch each of these videos and then kind of go and use this info to start playing around and sort of get the hang of this stuff with maybe some new avenues for creation that you didn't know about before. Pretty soon, once I get these first 10 videos out, which if you're watching this one, they probably already are out, I'll start working on more comprehensive stuff like making these sounds and throwing them in songs, or just do whole videos where, you know, I just let it record me starting a song from scratch and stuff like that, which I know is always really helpful to people. But here's some things that you can do just to kind of give you some ideas with once you have this much processing on them, like how you can kind of automate certain things to get some cool effects. So let's go here. Let me actually put one more EQ on here that I'm just basically going to use for a filter at the end here. So turn this guy up. Yeah, that's cool. And now if we want that LFO. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, do I have the LFO off on here? Right, because I'm on this top one. So let's do the same thing here. Something like that. So because we have this LFO affecting the pitch, just kind of giving a little like wobble, like vibrato, tremolo kind of effect on this guy. When some of those frequencies move around, some of them distort differently than others, which is why we're getting that little kind of like wobble in the distortion. It sounds like you know, the distortion kind of has its own little LFO going now. So yeah, here's a little beat I got going. All right, I'm gonna hit this capture button here. That's a cool new feature in Ableton 10. Well, new from 9, so I guess kind of old at this point. Now I'm running this through my like recording software. So everything, there's a little bit of delay on this stuff. So I'm gonna pull this all back, just line these guys up here. They don't all need to be perfectly lined up. A lot of times, like I like playing stuff out rather than drawing it in, because you get a little bit more human swing to it. But sometimes you kind of do need to do it manually, just because there's yeah. Let's see what we got here. So yeah, so that should work. All right, really simple bass line here. Just wanted to give you some things that we can do once we have some stuff in, and how to not overcomplicate stuff from the beginning. You know, throw on some effects, get a cool sound that sounds gritty and weird, or spacey and whatever. You know, play around with that stuff, get it however you want it to sound, and then come in here and start, you know, throwing some cool pitch bends or something like. Do the same thing on here. Smaller one. All right, let's automate some filtering here. And now, as we get more into these videos, I'm going to show you lots of ways to automate different sorts of filter LFO, but a lot of the times you just can't beat just drawing stuff in. So if you want something like this, actually, let me grab another one of these EQ8s here. Throw it behind this one. Watch out, because if you do grab one and throw it on top of another of the same device, it'll just replace it. So you definitely want to get that little line to appear right in the middle, not highlighted the whole thing. See? All right, cool. Let's do this guy now. And maybe I'll make it a steeper curve and do this. Let's do this. This guy. All right, let's go back over here and well, this isn't really the sound for that, so I don't really like that, so we're gonna just stick with what we got over here. All right, great. Simple little bass line, getting some automations in there. Let's see, what else can we do here? Let's use this fine. And on this one down here, though, let's automate this fine right here. So we don't want to go that high. Yep, so there you go. All right. Yeah, that's one way to do it. I feel like I'm kind of diving a little bit into like arrangement stuff now. So I'm gonna go back to just making some more operator patches because realistically I want to plan that one out a little bit more than what I'm doing right here. So let's take just like a sine wave and not draw on any harmonics, not do any FM or anything. Let's literally just take this right there and start processing it. Let's take this same 2-band split though that we did. Copy that. So this I'm going to delete all the processing and stuff that we have on here. Get rid of that so that all we have is this. All right, so now if I take just a saturator, just to kind of show you how this works, and just like kind of slam this up. Oh, we gotta also put this on one voice, make it a mono synth, put the glide on. All right, and again, that's because that low end is still feeding in through this high band. It just gets cut off at the end here, so this is still doing a lot to that. If you soft flip it, it'll get even a little gnarlier sounding. And if you turn the bass up, all right, let's like wave shape this a little bit. So let's turn this up. Very wet down too. So even with something as simple as that and some, let's actually just like map this real quick. Oh, I need to go into my preferences and set that up real quick. MIDI. We got here. Should be. Oh, there we go. That's why. There's something on my actual MIDI controller. So link the frequency to that knob there, and so now I can kind of play with this. Cool. And when you're automating that stuff in, you can there's certain, there are certain ways to make it so that you're also affecting the volume of that low end as well. And I'll definitely do one of these that's a little more comprehensive on Serum, where you have certain other abilities to do stuff like that. So now that we have that, let's throw in a chorus and let's just like start, throwing more stuff at it. Just showing how to generally get cool sounds out of stuff, right? So it doesn't really matter how we get there. We're just playing around. Let's go back over here too, and yeah. Let's see. I wonder if there is a way to yeah. Pull that back down. Maybe let's change the routing and take it all back. We'll do a little something on here. Light on here, yeah. So light up a little bit. Let's see, why is that doing that? Well, right, let's put a little filter envelope on there too. Again, if you went back and watched that initial intro to operator video, hopefully you understand a little bit of what I'm doing without me having to remember every little thing again. Let's pull this down and put the envelope on. A little alpha on this guy, not on that one though. Let's turn this off. So, yeah, let's see, what else do we got in here? Overdrive is a cool one that I like to use a lot. Overdrive is cool because it is just combining distortion with an EQ, so you kind of move this around. Let's pull this pitch envelope off, turn that on. Pull a couple of OTTs on here, maybe. I am going to adjust the attack on here so it's not so abrasive. Yeah, just on this guy here. Let's see, why is that? Probably because, yeah, okay, well, that doesn't really matter. Let's see if it keeps something off. That is real weird that it's doing that with one voice. It definitely shouldn't be. With glide on, it's like it didn't recognize that glide is on, or that it's on one voice. That is so strange. Every now and again, I have had some weird glitches in Ableton 11, that stuff has not worked exactly how it is supposed to. So let's just pull out another opera and see if it's doing that here. That is so strange. I guess it's Yeah, that's really weird. If anyone knows why it started doing that all of a sudden, definitely let me know in the comments. Let's go back to the saw wave and see if we can make this one weirder. Oh, you know what? You know what? I have a feeling. So something on my MIDI controller actually started doing that. So figured it out at least. That's cool, I guess. So what do we got here? Let's go back over here. Now I got my glide time way high up. Yep, there's something going on my MIDI controller on my key step there. Cool. Yeah, go back to the saw wave, see what kind of stuff we can do here. Let's see if there are any of these that are really worth. Yeah, a lot of times people do essentially what I did down here with a saturator with just some glue compression as well, or glue compressors, I should say, just any kind of compression. By just basically slamming the makeup and turning on the soft clip. So without the glue compressor, it's like that. You have a little, the overdrive is doing something. Like without that, there's not really gonna be anything. Maybe a little bit because of this OTT, but not really. So the overdrive does add a little bit of distortion, but mostly we're gonna get a lot more of those harmonics from this slamming this glue compressor through the threshold and clipping. So, and this is if you've watched that frequent tutorial on sine compression, which I definitely recommend watching it. He has some good ones on that topic. Is essentially what this is, and just moving these around. Actually putting that before the glue compression so that the compression so that these frequencies kind of slam into that different. Actually, we all want one on both. And let's see, is that going through there? Yeah. So a lot of times, we'll get into this when I start resampling stuff. You know, that'll sort of be the continuation of these. So actually, you know what? Why don't I go ahead and cut this here because I like I said, I do want these to be in sort of digestible chunks. Hopefully that gives you some ways to start getting some cool sounds. Play around with the waves in here. Play around with just throwing whatever device you want onto here and just, you know, move stuff around. Get cool sounds that you like. You know, try and repeat the process as many times as you can, and you'll start finding your own sort of sound and ways to affect stuff the way that you want to. In the next video, we're going to focus on racks, which, you know, I'll be honest, part of the reason I actually feel a little less equipped than I had initially hoped on this video is because I don't really do that many things with single operator patches without using racks since I really wanted to yeah, I guess I'll just move on to that video. And yeah, so scope that one next if you want to kind of see the continuation of this process. Yeah, thanks for watching as always. Cheers.